I still remember the sound my back made that day. A sharp, sudden pop, not loud, but deep. The kind you feel in your teeth. I was lifting a crate at the warehouse, same as I'd done 1,000 times before. Nothing heavy, nothing dramatic. But the angle was wrong, my footing slipped, and suddenly I was lying on cold concrete, staring up at fluorescent lights, trying to convince myself the pain shooting down my spine wasn't as bad as it felt. It was exactly as bad as it felt. The doctor called it a severe sprain, possibly a pinched nerve. "You'll recover," he said, flipping through his clipboard like my entire life hadn't just been rearranged. "But you'll need help for a few weeks. No bending, no lifting, no twisting. No living alone, in other words." That's how I ended up at Grandma Lorraine's house. The small blue house. Her place sat on the Oregon coast, a small blue house with peeling porch paint and wind chimes that sang whether the wind cooperated or not. She'd been a nurse for 35 years. The kind of woman who tucks a blanket around you in a way that makes you feel taken care of without feeling pitted. I hadn't stayed with her since I was a kid, but when I called, she didn't hesitate for even a second. "You come here," she said, gentle but firm. "Injuries heal faster when you're not stressed." I didn't argue. I didn't have the strength to. Breakfast and a brown bottle. The first morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and old wood polish. Grandma was already in the kitchen, humming quietly, eggs frying on the stove. She set a plate in front of me, then placed a small brown pill bottle beside it. "Take one every morning," she said. "It'll help calm your nerves and reduce inflammation." I didn't question her. She'd spent decades in hospitals. I'd spent the last 4 years stacking boxes. If she said I needed vitamins, I probably needed vitamins. But something about the moment felt heavier than it should have. Maybe it was the way she lingered after I swallowed the pill, watching me with a soft, searching expression, like she was waiting for something she wasn't ready to say out loud. I brushed it off. My back hurt. My pride hurt more. I just wanted to heal and get back to my life. I had no idea that tiny pill was about to change what my life even meant. The edges began to soften. The first few days were peaceful in a way my life hadn't been in years. Number 4 a.m. alarms. No warehouse noise. No manager barking about quotas. Just quiet. Just healing. But around the 4th or 5th day, I started noticing things. My thoughts felt slower. Calmer. Warmer, somehow. I'd get emotional at odd moments, watching Grandma fold laundry, or seeing afternoon light fall across the old family photos in the hallway. I told myself it was the injury, the exhaustion, the break from routine. But my skin was changing too. I'd touch my arm in the shower and pause, because it felt smoother than I remembered. There was a faint tingling beneath the surface, a low hum I couldn't explain. Not painful, more like awareness. Like my body was paying attention to itself in a new way. One morning, Grandma brought a stack of soft cotton clothes into my room. "These will be more comfortable on your back," she said, laying them on the bed. "That heavy fabric you boys wear irritates healing skin." I laughed it off, but when I put them on later, a loose, lightweight tee and soft shorts, I felt something I didn't want to examine too closely. They made me aware of my body in places I usually ignored. Grandma noticed, of course. She always notices. "I told you," she said, smiling. "Comfort helps recovery." Recovery. Right. The changes I couldn't explain away. By the second week, my facial hair had slowed down. I used to shave every morning without fail. Now I could go 2, sometimes 3 days without stubble. Subtle enough to rationalize. Noticeable enough to bother me. And every time I frowned or questioned it, Grandma would give me that look, soft, steady, almost proud. Like she was watching a puzzle come together exactly the way she'd planned. One afternoon, while helping me stretch my lower back, she brushed her hand along my forearm and said lightly, "You've always had such gentle features. I'm glad the stress is finally melting off you." Gentle features. She'd never said that before. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what was happening. Was it stress? Was it the medication? Was I imagining all of it? But the truth was simpler than any of those explanations. The vitamins weren't vitamins. And the softening wasn't an accident. I just didn't know that yet. The label I wasn't supposed to see. It happened on a gray Tuesday morning, the kind of Oregon day where the sky hangs so low it feels like it's pressing down on the roof. I walked into the kitchen half asleep, expecting the usual routine. But Grandma wasn't at the stove. She was fumbling with a fresh pharmacy bag, her expression tighter than usual. When she saw me, she startled just slightly but enough. "Oh, good morning, sweetheart," she said too quickly. "I picked up your vitamins early today." She set the bottle on the counter. And for the first time, she forgot to peel off the label. I didn't notice at first. I just poured my coffee, still half in a fog. But when I reached for the bottle, the words stared back at me like they were shouting. Estradiol 1 milligram. Hormonal therapy. Take once daily. The mug slipped in my hand. Coffee splashed across the counter. "What is this?" My voice cracked like I was 14 again. Grandma went still. Her shoulders rose, then slowly fell, like she was preparing herself for something she'd always known was coming. "Honey," she said quietly, "let's sit down. You told me these were vitamins." I couldn't move. My heart was hammering so hard I felt it in my throat. "You said they were for my nerves." "They are," she replied gently, "just in a different way." Grandma. My hands were shaking. Estradiol is a feminizing hormone.
Why?
Why would you give me this without telling me? She stepped closer. Her eyes were steady, heartbreakingly calm. "Erin, I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it because I've watched you hide your whole life, even when you were little." I stared at her. "Hide what?" She placed her hand over mine.
Warm.
Impossibly gentle. "Your softness," she said. "Your real self."
She paused.
"You don't remember, but I do. You used to try on my scarves when you thought I wasn't looking. You'd pose in the mirror with my church hat and giggle until someone walked by. Then you'd rip it off like you'd done something wrong." Heat rushed to my face. A memory flickered somewhere deep, blurred, but real. "You were never like the other boys," she continued. "You were delicate, sensitive. There was a beauty in you that the world didn't know how to love." My knees went weak. "So you drugged me?" I managed.
No.
Her voice was firm for the first time. "I nudged you. Because I knew you'd never explore this unless something opened the door. You've been hurting for years, Erin. I could see it every time you visited, behind your eyes in the way you carried yourself. Like someone wearing the wrong size skin." I couldn't speak. "You had an accident," she went on. "You needed care. The timing felt right. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, this would help you find the version of yourself you've been too afraid to meet." My throat tightened until it hurt. "And if I didn't want this?" I whispered. She touched my cheek. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Then you would have stopped weeks ago. But you didn't." That sentence hit harder than the fall that had injured my back. Because it was true. I hadn't stopped. I hadn't questioned anything. Some part of me had been leaning into the softness, without fully understanding why. The storm inside. For the rest of that morning, I couldn't look at her. I wandered from room to room like a ghost, touching the walls, the furniture, anything solid, because I didn't feel solid anymore. The truth kept replaying on a loop. Estradiol. Feminizing hormone. 3 weeks inside me. Already working. Outside, Oregon rain tapped softly against the windows. The kind of rain that makes the world feel smaller, quieter, which only made my thoughts louder. I stood in the bathroom and stared at my reflection. Same eyes. Same bones. But the face looking back felt softer. Almost unfamiliar. And the terrifying part, the part one didn't want to say out loud, was that I didn't hate it. I whispered, "What did she do to me?" But a quieter voice answered from somewhere deeper. "What did she reveal?" I snapped the light off and stumbled back to my room. Threw on the baggiest clothes I could find. An old hoodie. Loose sweatpants. Anything to cover the softness. I scraped at the stubble that remained, even though it felt pointless. I was trying to claw myself back into someone I wasn't sure I'd ever fully been. Grandma knocked gently. "Erin, sweetheart. May I come in?"
No.
It came out sharper than I intended. Silence. Then, softly, I'm not asking you to be anyone. I'm asking you to stop hurting yourself. That almost broke me. Dinner and the truth between the lines. That evening, she'd set the table like nothing had changed: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, all my childhood favorites. Like she was anchoring me in something familiar, while everything else shifted beneath my feet. She didn't bring up the bottle, didn't push, just watched me with that calm, steady patience that made everything feel more complicated. Halfway through the meal, she said quietly, "You're allowed to be angry, but don't confuse anger with truth." I dropped my fork. Truth? Grandma, you changed my body without my permission. I nudged a truth you were already living, she replied. I didn't create this softness, Aaron. I just helped you stop running from it. I wanted to argue.
God, I wanted to.
But the words tangled in my throat because she wasn't entirely wrong. For years, I'd felt off, out of place in my own skin, quietly envious of a softness I couldn't name, curious about things I'd shoved so deep they'd become shadows. And in these past weeks, the softer clothes, the gentler reflection, the way my body was slowly, quietly changing, something inside me had stopped fighting. Part of me felt relieved.
Seen.
Almost honest. That realization scared me more than the pills ever could. The wig, the clothes, the mirror. Days passed. Grandma continued her gentle nudges, never forcing, never demanding, always offering. One afternoon she appeared with a neatly folded set of clothes. A pale lavender camisole, buttery soft leggings, and a short brown wig, brushed into gentle waves. Clothing therapy, she called it. When patients feel comfortable in their bodies, they move better, heal better. My heart hammered. Grandma, I can't wear this. You don't have to, she said immediately. I'm not forcing you. But I want you to try, just for a moment. For posture. For therapy. For understanding yourself. She paused. And, sweetheart, it's okay to be curious. That word landed in my chest like a whisper. Curious. Because I was. I had been for years. And denying it hadn't made it disappear. My hands were shaking as I picked up the camisole. In the bathroom, I pulled it over my head. The fabric was so soft it nearly slipped through my fingers. It settled against my chest, light, gentle, outlining a softness that hadn't been there a month ago. The leggings followed, smoothing along my legs in a way that made my breath catch. When I opened the door, Grandma didn't gasp,
Didn't beam.
didn't make it dramatic. She just looked at me with a tenderness that made my eyes sting. Beautiful, she whispered. Not because of the clothing. Because you finally look comfortable. I swallowed hard. I don't know how to feel. You don't have to know, she said. Come here. Let me help you with the wig. She placed it gently over my head, adjusting the strands with the same careful hands that had tucked blankets around me when I was sick as a child.
Warm. Steady.
Familiar. Walk for me, she said softly. Shorter steps. It eases pressure on your lower back. I walked. It felt strange. And it felt right. Both at once, in a way I had no language for. When I passed the hallway mirror, I stopped. The reflection wasn't fully feminine. Not yet. But it was softer.
Calmer.
More honest than anything I'd seen in years. I barely heard my own voice. Is this me? Grandma rested her hand on my shoulder. It's a part of you, she said. One you never gave permission to breathe. That was the moment, not the wig, not the clothes, not the pills, when I understood what was actually happening. I wasn't just dressing differently. I was recognizing myself. Aaron. That evening, Grandma was knitting in her armchair when I came down for tea. She glanced up, her eyes softening. Not in shock, not in triumph. In recognition. Like she'd been waiting years to see me walk into the room exactly like that. We talked about nothing for a while. Her garden. The neighbors. The coast. Then she looked up from her knitting and said, Aaron, would you hand me my scissors? My breath stopped. Aaron. Just one letter different from my name. But it landed like an earthquake under my ribs. I froze so long she realized what she'd said. Her hand flew to her chest. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. It just slipped out. But it didn't feel like a slip. It felt intentional, truthful, dangerously right. Why did you call me that? I managed. She hesitated, the longest pause she'd given me since I found the bottle. Because when I look at you now, she said quietly, that name feels softer. Like it belongs to the person you're finally letting yourself be. I shook my head, but my voice cracked. She reached beside her chair and pulled out a small makeup bag. Just a little mascara. Some soft blush. Nothing heavy. She looked at me carefully. Feeling like yourself is its own kind of therapy. I stared at the bag for a long time. Then I said, just show me. Her smile wasn't triumphant. It wasn't manipulative. It was relieved, tender, like she'd just watched me stop drowning. She dabbed the lightest blush onto my cheeks, brushed a touch of mascara through my lashes. Small shifts. Quiet ones. When she handed me the mirror, my breath hitched. I didn't look like a woman. I didn't look like a man pretending. I looked like someone softer. Someone I almost recognized. Grandma's voice broke the silence. Hello, Erin, she whispered. And for the first time, I didn't correct her. The morning, I had to leave. My physical therapy was supposed to last 6 weeks. By the end of the 5th, the doctor said I was ready to go home. I stood in Grandma's hallway that final morning wearing jeans that suddenly felt too stiff. Too loud. Too wrong. I didn't know what normal meant anymore. Not for me. Not after this. She packed my things slowly, folding each shirt with quiet tenderness. She tucked the makeup bag into a side pocket without comment, wrapped the wig in tissue paper like it was something fragile and sacred. And at the very end, she placed the small brown pill bottle gently on top of everything else. You don't have to take it, she said. I'm not asking you to, but you should have the choice. The choice. The word felt heavier than anything else in that suitcase. I don't know who I am right now, I admitted. My voice shook. It was the first time I'd said it out loud. Grandma stepped closer and lifted my chin so I had to look at her. You're someone who deserves to explore without shame, she said. Someone who deserves softness, however it looks. I didn't make you this way, Erin. I simply stopped pretending I couldn't see it. The truth in her voice broke something in me. Not painfully, more like a lock snapping open. We stood in silence until she whispered the name again. Erin, do you want me to stop calling you that? I thought about the mirror moments. The leggings. The softness in my face. The mascara that made my eyes look awake and honest. I thought about how my body had changed, not drastically, but undeniably, and how none of it felt like a costume. Slowly, I shook my head. No, I said. Not yet. She smiled. Small, gentle, proud. Not pushing. Not controlling. Just seeing me. The drive home. When I loaded my bag into the rideshare, I caught my reflection in the car window. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to flinch or correct it. There was a softness there now, in my features, in my posture, in the way I held myself. And it didn't feel forced. It felt like a truth still forming. As we pulled away, Grandma waved from the porch. The wind chimes sang in the cold Oregon air, a sound that felt like both a goodbye and an invitation. I looked at the pill bottle in my bag. My fingers hovered over it. Not taking it would mean choosing the life I thought I was supposed to live. Taking it would mean stepping deeper into the unknown, into softness, into honesty, into a version of myself I was only beginning to understand. The car turned onto the main road. Rain streaked across the windows. My reflection blurred, then sharpened again. I whispered, almost too quietly to hear. What if Grandma didn't change me? What if she'd just let me see myself? The question hung there, trembling unfinished. A door cracked open. Not yet stepped through. And that's where my story rests now. Not in certainty. Not in a transformation completed. But in the quiet, terrifying, hopeful space between who I was and who I might be becoming. My back healed. My apartment waited. My old life was right where I'd left it. But I wasn't sure I was the same person going back to it. And somehow, that felt like the most honest thing I'd thought in years.